Okay. It's after 7 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. We'll call the Johnston City Council meeting number 25-02 to order. Cindy, roll call, please.
Councilmember Cope.
Here.
Evans.
Here.
Martin.
Here.
Reddy.
Here.
Burkhart.
Here.
I want to welcome everyone that is in the audience this evening. If you are here for an item that is not on the agenda, we would ask for you to wait for that item to come up. If you are here for an item that is on the agenda, I think I got that backwards. I've done this too many times. If you're here for an item that is on the agenda, we would ask for you to wait for that item to come up. If you are here for an item that is not on the agenda, there will be an opportunity under public communications to address the council. Next item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Stoy, would you do the honors of leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is public comment for public communications. Do we have? Oh, what? It's too cold outside for.
It is. It really is.
The next item on the agenda is the agenda approval. Mike, do we have any changes to the agenda?
I do not have any amendments.
Council, any changes to the agenda? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Evans.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Reddy.
Here.
Burkhart.
Yes.
Cope.
Yes.
Motion passed. Now let's try public communications. Is there anyone in the audience this evening that would like to address the council on an item that is not on the agenda? Cindy, anybody online? Okay, we will move on to public hearings then. We have 3 scheduled public hearings this evening. The first one is a continuation of a public hearing and to consider approval of the first reading of ordinance number 1128, an official zoning map amendment for 1.923 acres from PUD to C2. Subject property is located at 5455, 5475, and 5495 Merle Hay Road and 5758 Northwest 55th Avenue. We will open this public hearing at 7:05.
Mayor and council, this is the continued public hearing from last meeting. As you might recall, at that time, the applicant had requested that it be continued to this meeting. That applicant has since withdrawn this request in writing. We received that after the agenda has been published. So I would respectfully ask that you open and close the public hearing.
Well, we have opened it. Do we have a motion? I guess we don't need a motion to close it. We will close the public hearing at 7:06. For the request of the applicant. Moving on then to item 4B. Consider adoption of resolution number 25-26, adopting the revenue purpose statement for the franchise fees established by the proposed electric franchise ordinance, hold a public hearing on the proposed electric franchise ordinance, and consider adoption of the electric franchise ordinance 1129 with Mid-American Energy. We'll open this public hearing at 7:07. Mike?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. And the next item is related to the franchise fee for gas franchises. And so I'm going to kind of cover both of these in one, but we'll have to hold 2 separate actions for both of these items. So as the council is aware, the city in our fiscal year 2023-2024 budget did introduce a 1% franchise fee. Now that replaced our 1% local option sales tax that was on our utility bill. So that transition really for all of the ratepayers was a cost neutral for everyone. tonight before you is to increase the franchise fee from 1% to 5%. And the purpose of this is to cover staffing costs that was really part and outlined in our 5-year staffing plan, in particular to cover public safety costs. The revenue projection, just as a reminder, the 1% does generate $295,243 annually, and going to the 5% would generate $1,476,215,000 annually. The rationale, again, is to support the 5-year staffing plan and the needs that the council has identified through that. And really, if you think about some of the reasons why we do the staffing plan is really to help kind of resource allocate all of the staffing needs that we know are going to be upcoming, and really to provide sustainability. We know as we're growing at a population growth of 2 to 3% a year, we do need to look at our staffing needs and respond to those changing dynamics. Additionally, we looked at other metro communities, other communities are similar size around the state. We know comparably, they're at 7.39 staff per thousand. Here in Johnston, we're at 6.36. So we do stuff pretty efficiently. But again, as we grow, we do need to add additional staff so we can maintain the level of service that we have. So over the next 5 years, the plan does include 16.5 new public safety positions, so 6.5 in our police department, and 10 within our fire department. Again, public safety is really kind of the key behind this and our top priority. So if you look at kind of that need that they have demonstrated, the police department has seen a documented activity increase of 27% from 2019 kind of pre-COVID numbers through our last calendar year of 2024. And they had an all-time high of 34,915 documented activities in 2024. Additionally, related to fire calls, we've seen a 49.8% increase in our call volume over the 5-year period. And we had an all-time documented high of 4,426 calls in 2024. So again, it's really to provide and keep that maintain the level of service that our residents desire. The plan does also include other department positions. There's 14.5 in other departments, including Public Works, that maintains our utilities and our streets. Now, most of those positions are funded out of road use tax, so they wouldn't come out of the franchise fee. And then quality of life areas like our parks and library. And then finally, administration, which supports all our departments, including public safety, quality of life, and our Public Works areas. As we know, state legislative impacts are clearly kind of part of what's driving this. We know recent law changes through House File 718, Senate File 2442. They're constraining how property tax revenues are used. And really in response to that, we did our first 5-year staffing plan last year. We actually had 10 more positions in it than what we do this year. And really it was a response to that legislative change and us going back and reevaluating all the positions in the staffing plan. So as we reviewed the staffing plan, just as a reminder, we looked at a phased approach. We'd have a 5% franchise fee in 2026, and then we committed we would maintain a flat property tax levy for the fiscal year 2026. And then we would look at, in out years of the staffing plan, a 10-cent annual increase in fiscal year 2027 through 2030 for a total of 40 cents. And really the benefits by doing that is providing consistency and kind of this known quantity of what the property tax impact would be on our residents and property taxpayers. Additionally, looking at the franchise fees, one of the big benefits that we identified was it really does reduce the burden on the taxpayers. It does ensure that other tax-exempt entities like Camp Dodge, some of our major regional nonprofits that are in town, and some other non-taxable property owners are paying franchise fees who receive city services day in and day out. So that's kind of an outline of the kind of thought and decision and discussion point the council's had up to this point. So tonight there's 3 actions that you're asked to consider. First is to consider and adopt the revenue purpose statement for the franchise fees established by the proposed franchise ordinances. These are the same revenue purpose statements that the council's approved previously, and then you would hold a public hearing on the proposed franchise ordinance, first on the electric, then the gas, and then finally you would consider a possible first reading of the franchise ordinance for both first electric and gas. So with that, I would pause, answer any questions council has this evening. Thank you.
Council, any questions for Mike?
Mayor, actually, I do. Mike, we just concluded a budget workshop, and in that budget workshop, there was a line item for the library because the library currently has designated for its revenue funds a very small franchise fee for cable services. This is not impacting the designation of funds.
And that franchise fee is cable franchise fee, so it's not the gas or electric that we're talking about this evening. Good question.
Thank you.
I have a question. Mike, in the past, I think David has given us information about the breakdown of how much Johnston area is covered by governmental or nonprofits. He either did it by area or he did it by a percent of our valuation.
David just sent me some information on that, and let's see if I can find it unless he has it pulled up.
I just think this is important information and it should be added to the file.
So,
And I'd like to reference it. Thank you.
so the information David provided, this came out of the Thrive 2040 plan. So when you break out all the spaces, park and open space is 3% of our land area. Public or semi-public areas is about 3%. Camp Dodge is 19% of our land area. The Army Corps of Engineers, we kind of forget about Saylorville, the Saylorville Lake, which we obviously provide a lot of support through our police and fire. That's 11% of our area. Right-of-way is 8%. So 44% of our land area is non-taxable according to our Thrive 2040 plan.
Thank you.
So the non-for-profit, those, they're under that first 3% or so.
The second one, but the note is it may not capture all of our nonprofits.
Like, for instance, LifeServe was post the 2040 plan. So
Correct.
that would add to that, so. But I think I agree that that's kind of a helpful piece of information for us to talk about. And we have, you know, some of those non-tax paying entities don't tax or don't rely heavily on services, but some really rely heavily on services. So I think this is a nice way for us to really ensure that people who are benefiting from the services their city provides are helping to contribute to those costs.
Well, and there's another one I forgot. Camp Dodge, you almost think that they provide their own policing, but we provide policing there too. Not only fire, but police.
Other questions for Mike? Mike or Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, even with the addition, and we talked a little bit about this at the budget meeting earlier this evening and a prior one, but we're looking at adding a couple of police officers, as well as a couple of firefighters. Even with those additions, we still lag behind peer communities. I mean, we're always trying to catch up, and we can never catch up and fully provide the services that we need in our community. I mean, our police and our fire do an outstanding job with the resources and the people power that they have available to them, but we're still not where we should be as a community. Is that correct?
Mayor, that's correct. In the police department, roughly, there's a common factor that's associated with staffing per 1,000 residents, and that varies based upon need across the country. But when we compare to our neighbors throughout the Des Moines metropolitan area, the Johnston Police Department is typically in that bottom third as far as those ratios go. We're very lean staff, we're very efficient, and we work hard to maintain a strong, viable department. But it is a challenge each and every day to make sure that we're meeting the needs and exceeding the expectations of our community, and we need more officers to do that as we continue to grow.
And I saw the fire chief nodding his head as well. So I think that's something that we need to continue to remind ourselves. You know, we're doing the best we can to provide what I think is the #1 priority services that we owe to our residents in our community. And we still haven't got to where we need to be in order to make sure that they are are protected with police and fire services, so. The other point that I think should be made about the franchise fee is as a way to fund some of these services. And that is that we are feeling a lot of pressure from the legislature on trying to find alternative sources of revenue to provide services to residents in our community. We don't want to raise property taxes for our residents either. And so, you know, we work very hard to make sure that doesn't happen. And when it does happen, that you know, that we're spending the money that we need to maintain that quality of services that we have in our community. But we're hearing from legislators that we need to be looking, I guess what I'm hearing from legislators is if you want to continue to maintain that level of service to residents in your community, you need to look for alternative sources of funding, alternative sources of revenue to do that. And so obviously this is one that is available to us. It's one that the legislature provided to us as an alternative source. And it is a fair way to fund these kinds of services, because it doesn't just fall on the backs of the property taxpayers. It fall, you know, all of the residents and organizations and entities in our community will be paying this franchise fee and be paying for those services. So this is a fair way to fund those services. So.
I guess I would also add too, is that, you know, when we do the, ensuring that residents have access to adequate gas and electric service is something that our staff spends a lot of time on. I mean, if we are expanding a road and we need to move those gas lines, we spend a lot of time and planning and trying to figure that out. Or obviously, you know, those gas lines all run in right away throughout our city. A couple of years ago, when we had another utility that was expanding in the right of way, they nicked the gas line. And so that involved a lot of effort on the part of the utility, but also city staff and helping to get that issue addressed. So we do spend, that is an important service that gets provided. And so I think this fee, and I think it's also important to note that we're not unique among cities in the metro that are imposing a franchise fee at this level. There are other cities, and I'm like, if you have it, not that we need it, but if you have it handy. So again, this really brings us in line with several other cities in the metro.
And they're doing it for the same reason that we are.
Right.
We have to consider what our alternative funding sources are, so. Yeah. So, and I really see the budget discussions that we're going to have later separate from this decision tonight. I mean, this is a funding source, and we've identified where we want to spend this money, but we still have a lot of hard decisions to make around the budget as well, so. This is still a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the council on this item? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing at 7:21. Do we have a motion to approve resolution number 25-26?
Move approval.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Hearing none. Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Martin.
Yes.
Ready.
Yes.
Burkhart.
Yes.
Cope.
Yes.
Evans.
Yes.
Motion passed. Do we have a motion to approve first consideration of ordinance number 1129?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Discussion. Kind of had our discussion while it was in the public hearing, so to avoid repeating ourselves, we have a motion and a second. Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Ready.
Yes.
Burkhart.
Yes.
Cope.
Yes.
Evans.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes. Motion passed. Item 4C, consider adoption of resolution number 25-27, adopting the revenue purpose statement for the franchise fees established by the proposed gas franchise ordinance. Hold a public hearing on the proposed gas franchise ordinance and consider adoption of the gas franchise ordinance 1130 with Mid-American Energy Company. We'll open this public hearing at 7:22.
Mayor and council, unless there's a desire for me to kind of repeat myself, happy again to answer any questions related to the gas franchise ordinance. Thank you.
Any questions for Mike on this one? They're separate, but they're kind of the same. This is a public hearing. Cindy, is there anyone online that would like to address the council? There is no comments, then we will close the public hearing at 7:23. Do we have a motion to approve resolution number 25-27?
Move. Second?
Motion and a second, discussion. Again, I would just say that the comments that were made previously also apply to this one. We have a motion and a second. There is no further discussion. Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Burkhart.
Yes.
Hope.
Yes.
Evans.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Ready.
Yes.
Motion passed. Do we have a motion to approve first consideration of ordinance number 1130?
I move. Second.
Motion and a second, discussion. Cindy, vote please.
Member Cope.
Yes.
Evans. Martin.
Yes.
Ready.
Yes.
Burkhart.
Yes.
Motion passed. Moving on to the consent agenda. We have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Move. Second.
Motion and a second, discussion. Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Evans.
Yes.
Martin.
Yes.
Ready.
Yes.
Burkhart.
Yes.
Cope.
Yes.
Motion passed. Non-consent agenda. Item 7A, consider second reading of ordinance number 1127, amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of Johnston, Iowa, 2007 by amending section 106.12 for the purpose of adopting solid waste collection fees to become effective on July 1, 2025.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is the second reading of the ordinance related to our solid waste and recycling fees. Staff has not received any comments for or against it. Be happy to answer any questions council has.
Have any questions for Mike? Is there anyone in the audience or online that would like to address the council? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve the second reading of ordinance number 1127?
So moved.
Second. Motion and second. Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Martin.
Yes.
Ready.
Yes.
Burkhart.
Yes.
Cope.
Yes.
Evans.
Yes.
Motion passed. Item 7B, consider resolution number 25-28, approving and authorizing execution of amendment number 6 to the purchase, sale, and development agreement by and between the City of Johnston and Johnston Golf Development LLC.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This evening in front of you, as the Mayor mentioned, is consideration of amendment number 6 to the development agreement with Johnston Golf LLC. This is mainly straightforward in comparison to some of our previous amendments. With the caveat, there's an additional milestone in this amendment that the developer provide the city with documentation of a full executed private lending term sheet by February 19th, 2025. We have been in discussion with the developer actively, as we typically are, and based on conversations that was included in this amendment. This would push out the amendment for the developer to secure financing and commence on the minimum improvements by June 17th, 2025, with a completion by December 31st, 2025. Staff recommends approval. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Josh?
Josh, the deadline that said December 31st, 2025, minimum improvements, what does that mean?
Minimum improvements in legalese means the construction of the building.
Is that a skeleton of the building or is that? I'm
Sorry, what?
I did not understand that very well.
So are you talking about the December 31st date?
Yes.
Yeah, so basically they need to be complete with the construction of the building by the end of the calendar year.
Oh, the whole construction needs to be complete.
It is a tight deadline.
Minimum improvements, just, yeah, okay.
Just so there's no public, do you want to kind of talk about our thoughts for the next steps once they?
Go ahead, Mike, please.
Okay, I mean, we know that once they get their private equity and we look at kind of those next steps of entering into a future development agreement for the loan that we provide upfronting the TIF incentive, it's going to take a complete rewrite of the development agreement. This is really just an agreement that's amending dates and extending dates out. It would be a larger amendment if we went past December 31st of 2025, because we'd have to then push back our TIF grant dates and whatnot. So we fully expect that that date will move as we work with Bombers and put the rest of the package together for them. So it really, don't go out there and say it'll be open December 31st, 2025, because that is probably unlikely.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah.
I understand
There's
that.
future conversations.
Fair enough. I think we had the same discussion earlier on, sometime back, saying that will be done by August something 24. I think that was a date set at the time with the same discussion that we had. So I'm just trying to get a picture of all this. We really have something done by December 31st.
There's going to be future conversations, and likely that will be challenging to me. So more to come on that. Good question. Thank you.
That being said, I mean, I think they are clearly, I think it's fair to say, making significant progress towards securing financing that will allow significant improvements, development to happen on the site in calendar year 2025. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. And if you look at the date of them actually executing, the third point of executing, getting the financing and that's also related to, now we're going to purchase steel. That will put them in a position that they can be, you're going to see something out of the ground by December.
Right. So I mean, I think that's, this is sort of doing an extension on the deadline. But the good news is that the real positive development is when they secure financing, which we believe is really close, and then we'll be looking at a completely new development agreement that really gives you a good sense of what the final layout of it is. But the good news is that they're making progress on securing funding, which is a real positive sign, so.
Other questions for Josh? Not, do we have a motion to approve resolution number 25-28?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second, discussion. Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Reddy,
Oh, sorry. Oh, yes.
Hope,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Burkhart.
Yes.
Motion passed. Item 7C, consider approval of claims in the amount of $1,132,987.88.
Move approval. Second.
Motion and second, discussion. Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Burkhart,
Yes.
Hope,
Yes.
Evans,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Reddy.
Yes.
Motion passed. Moving on to city administrator staff comments.
I don't have any specific comments this evening. I think Matt has an update they'd like to provide tonight.
Yeah, they're in the packet tonight. We received correspondence from the DOT. They are preparing or proposing to let a pavement repair project on I-80 that really runs through Polk County. It'd be west of, it's west of Jordan Creek Parkway and extends all the way to Jasper County. So there will be road work that really doesn't impact or reroute traffic, but they will be doing repairs to the roadway this summer. And there is no cost to the city. It'll be picked up through their their funds. So they had asked that we'd include that at our next council meeting for your information.
Matt, do your timeline when that will be done in the Johnston area?
I don't, they haven't shared that. The information that they gave us is they're proposing the project, so it doesn't sound like it's been let yet. Once I get more information, I'll follow up with the DOT and then I can provide that at a future council meeting.
All right, thanks.
Any other city administrator or staff comments?
Done this evening.
City council comments, Councilman Evans.
Nothing, thank you.
Ready?
Pass, thank you.
So I was at the state capitol today, and there was a presentation in the local government committee by the city administrator from Spencer, who was sharing Spencer's experience after a very significant natural disaster that struck their city this summer. And I had a chance over the holiday. We spent some time in Hawaii, and so we saw Lahaina, which suffered a major significant natural disaster. And over a year and a half ago, and they're barely starting to do the cleanup. And then obviously we've seen the fires in California as well and all that. But so I think sometimes I sort of think, well, that just sort of happens in these exotic places where they've got water and mountains next to each other. But it was fascinating, but sad to hear the challenges at Spencer, which is a town in Northwest Iowa. Several of us are from Northwest Iowa. Spencer's not a town that typically has a natural disaster, especially flooding. They do have a river that runs right through it, but it's not a river that is prone to flooding. This happened in the spring, late spring of 2024. Not because a significant amount of rain necessarily fell in Spencer, but a significant, and it was one of those kind of meteorological kind of things where a major storm cell kind of set up just outside of Spencer, just to the north and the west. Similar in a lot of ways to those sort of unique meteorological conditions that contributed to the fires in California, the fire in Hawaii, and even the 10-inch rain that we had here in 2018. But that started the whole thing. Massive amount of rain. They had transformers, 10% of their transformers, Spencer is a municipal utility. 10% of their transformers were knocked out, completely underwater, resulted in the wastewater treatment facility losing power. So now, because the wastewater treatment facility has lost power, sewers are no longer working. They had about 5,000 structures in the city of Spencer. 75% of them had stormwater or sewer backup through their basement. I mean, that is a devastating number. 40% had topwater flooding in their yards. And so this was, I mean, they had the state representative from Spencer, Megan Jones, and Megan's been up in the legislature for a while. Megan has a young family, 4 or 5 kids, and these kids are all like, maybe 15 is the oldest. And they had to be rescued off the top of a middle school. They were on the roof of a middle school, and that's how they had to be rescued. They had to set up 6 shelters for people that significant challenges. They lost 60% of their rental units. And in a town like Spencer, where you have a lot of older housing stock, the rental units tend to be older. Anyway, it was to listen to all of those challenges and to have it really underscores the need for planning for emergency management and those types of things when those things happen. And it also just underscores just all the challenges you have, that even when you try to plan for an emergency, when you're doing the planning and you do the tabletop exercises, and the city administrator said, you're doing that not under stress, right? When you're faced with this situation and you're doing it under stress, it's really hard. And the city administrator for Spencer at the time was an interim city administrator. He's now been made the full-time city administrator. He was the mayor of Spencer. So just kind of a fascinating story. Spencer's a great town, 11,000 people. It's a town in Northwest Iowa, one of the strongest towns up in Northwest Iowa. But anyway, it was just fascinating to kind of see that and hear that. And I think it just underscored for me, one, you know, you always have to be prepared for natural disaster, but two, at the end, you know, Spencer was lucky in the sense they had a really good community leadership, a great group of leaders in the community that rallied around and have figured out how to deal with the emergency in the time and how to respond to it since then, and just how important that is. So just a little lesson from, that I picked up on today in my day job.
Councilman Burkhart.
Nothing further.
I have nothing, Mayor.
I'm going to pass this evening too. We do have a closed meeting, so. Okay, well, we will move on to our closed meeting now. Closed session. Item 10A, pursuant to Article Section 21.51C, to discuss strategy with counsel in matters that are presently in litigation or where litigation is imminent, where its disclosure would be likely to prejudice or disadvantage the position of the government body in that litigation. Do we have a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Cindy, vote please.
Councilmember Coe?
Yes. Wasn't sure if I was
Evans?
here or yes.
Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Ready?
Yes.
Burkhart?
Yes.
Motion passed.